Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we're going to be dealing with one of my favorite stories in the scriptures, Moses and the burning bush. We're going to find this in our reading in chapter 3 of Exodus. And this is Moses basically taking care of his father-in-law's flock, and he's pasturing them. And as he's doing that, something catches his eye. He looks over and there's this flame, this fire, and it's this bush that is being burned but is not being consumed. And so he draws a little bit closer to find out that it's the Lord, and the Lord's presence is there. And the Lord has a word to give Moses, and he tells him to take off his sandals, for the ground that he's standing on is holy ground. And the Lord will go on to tell Moses that he knows the situation of the Israelites. The Israelites were being oppressed. They were being in slavery. The Egyptians were treating them very, very harshly in Egypt. And God had heard their cries. They had cried out to the Lord in their difficulty, and the Lord heard it. And the Lord saw exactly what they were going through, and the Lord was going to do something about it. And he was going to send Moses to be the deliverer of his people. And as we think about this bush, this burning bush, there are a lot of applications we can make to this bush. One of the reasons why I love this story so much. But one of them ties very closely to what's going on in the circumstances in which it occurs. And that is, this bush would represent Israel in the fiery trial in Egypt. Most likely this bush was made of acacia wood. And as we move forward in the building of the tabernacle, we're going to see in typology that acacia wood represents humanity. And here we have humanity in the form of the nation of Israel under the fire, under the fiery trial. And fire represents trial, as you find in 1 Peter chapter 1, where Peter talks about the faith that is tested by fire, and then later on he'll talk about the fiery trial. Fire a lot of times represents judgment, but at the same time it can represent trials that people undertake. And so the picture that we have with this burning bush is humanity in the form of the nation of Israel being under the fiery trial, but not being consumed, not being burned up. And we see that in the previous chapters, in the first couple of chapters in Exodus, how the Egyptians were doing everything they could to keep the Israelites from expanding and from multiplying. They gave them hard labors, had them building things, made them work hard. Maybe that will keep them from having so many children. And then they started attacking the newborn babies, thinking that would snuff them out, or at least make their numbers decline, or at least stay even, at least keep them from multiplying. And it didn't work. No matter what the Egyptians tried to do, they just kept multiplying and growing and growing. They were not consumed. Doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult for them. As they are under that fiery trial, they were crying out to the Lord. They were having a very difficult time under those taskmasters and all the things that they were having to endure. It was a very, very difficult time. But the Lord did not allow them to be consumed. He didn't allow them to be utterly and completely destroyed. We see this literally happening in another story in the book of Daniel. If you think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, there was a story where Nebuchadnezzar told everybody, he said, you must bow down to this golden statue that I made. And if you don't, you get thrown into the fiery furnace. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego wouldn't do it. And, as Nebuchadnezzar promised, he had them thrown into the fiery furnace, only to find that they were not consumed. They came out, and you couldn't even tell that they had been in the fire. The Lord had protected them within the fire. And so that's kind of very similar to what we see with this burning bush. It's burning, but not consumed. And of course, the application for us as Christians is that there are many times in which we are going to undergo fiery trials. There's just, for one, just the nature of being on this earth puts you under various trials, right? We have to suffer the loss of loved ones. Many times we have to suffer under financial problems, relationship problems, marital problems, family problems. You just name the list. There's difficulty after difficulty in this life just from being human, just going through the human experience. But also as Christians, added to that, is times in which we will be persecuted for our faith. It might be physical persecution, which is going on in this world. We see on the news all the time Christians being beheaded, being killed for their faith. But also, it can be an intellectual persecution where people look down on us for what we believe. They think of us as not so smart because we walk by faith and not by sight. It could be a persecution in the job site. Times when we have to choose between our job and serving the Lord. So there's an array of different ways in which we could become put under the fiery trial. But praise be to God, we are not consumed. If we hold on to our faith, and if we hold on to the Lord with everything that we have, if we'll just grasp Him and hold tight to Him, we have the promise that we will not be consumed. The fire might be intense, the fire might be hot, and it might get to the point where we lose all hope within ourselves and within our circumstances. But one hope that remains is our hope in God and in His Son Jesus Christ, that they will hold us and keep us through the fire. And we can be like that burning bush. If God can cause a burning bush not to burn up, even though it is blazing with fire, He can definitely keep us from being consumed in our situations. So don't, if you are in a fiery trial, and I'm certain that there are people here listening today who are under some type of trial, don't give up. Don't give up your faith. It's not easy. It's never easy going through trials. It wasn't easy for the Israelites. I'm sure it wasn't easy for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but God held them fast, and God allowed them not to be utterly consumed. And He'll hold you fast as well. And so this is our hope. This is our strength. This is what gets us through, knowing that we have a God who upholds us and keeps us and protects us even in the most difficult and trying circumstances. So hopefully, guys, today's video has been helpful to you. I do thank you for watching it. I love you guys. Hope you all have a great day. God bless.